Hello there. Today I'm tasting an aged example of Australia's best known Botrytis sweet wine, the Noble One Botrytis Semillon. It's the 2006 vintage and this is coming from a half bottle. Deen de Bortoli, the producer, based in Griffith in the Riverina district of New South Wales. The company's a family-owned company. It was started in 1928 by Italian migrants, and this particular wine was the brainchild of Deen de Bortoli, who'd studied oenology at Roseworthy, South Australia's winemaking college, returned to the family business. He'd always been quite interested by the idea of producing botrytis-affected sweet wines, and in 1982 he was given the opportunity to do so, given the fact that they had Semillon planted in Griffith, and 1982 was a year that produced abundant botrytis. It was a wet year following on from a few years of drought. And he was by no means encouraged by the rest of the family. In fact, quite a number of the members of his family tried to discourage him from producing wine, but he went ahead, and the 1982 vintage of Deen de Bortoli's Noble One has become one of the most awarded wines in Australian history, on their show circuit, that is. Deen de Bortoli had been inspired by having tasted a 1975 vintage of Chateau Coutet, an estate in Barsac in Bordeaux, in the Sauternes region there. In fact, up until 1988, the wine was actually labelled quite legally in Australia. Then, as a Sauternes, you're not able to use such geographic designations from other countries by wine laws anymore, but in those days that was permitted. The region here has regular, quite reliable morning mists in March, and that helps to promote the spread of botrytis through the vineyards. Obviously, in an area where irrigation is permitted, you can, if you're not getting the mists, you can encourage that, so they have that advantage there as well. And the grapes are monitored to measure their sugar levels and the amount of botrytis that they contain. When the picking decision is made, the wines have to be hand-picked, because there's a certain amount of selection required just to pick out the botrytis and to pick out healthy botrytis to make sure it's not grey rot, which would cause off flavours in the wine. Once at the winery, the fruit is pressed, the juice is allowed to settle overnight, and fermentation proceeds at quite cool temperatures, actually, somewhere between 13 and 15 degrees Celsius. The individual vineyard batches are fermented separately, and fermentation can go on, because of the difficulty for the yeast of fermenting these very sweet musts, from somewhere between 3 weeks to even 3 months in some extreme occasions. My belief, because of the cooling, is that the fermentation will have gone on in tank, but I haven't actually seen anything to confirm that. Aging, however, takes place in barrel. So 22% of the wine ferments in new, tight-grained, high-quality French oak barriques, 225 litre barrels. A further 57% is aged in second-year oak barrels, and the balance, the remaining 21%, stays in the tanks to give a blending option. So if you want to tone down the amount of oak in the final wine, you can add some of the fresher tank fermented wine to bring about that balance. And aging goes on for a period of 10 to 12 months prior to bottling. Right, so let's have a look at the wine then, shall we? The first thing that is quite remarkable is the depth of the colour. I have previously made a video of the 2016 vintage of this wine, and if you look at the colour of that, that's much more a deep yellow to pale gold. This is a deep gold to really quite rich amber. There's a lovely orange, almost copperish note to the wine, and I can almost sort of see a sort of a blood orange red note on the rim there. Swelling the wine, the aromas they're luscious. Initially there's a sort of a burnt sugar and treacle note, but then beyond that there's honey, there are lifted honeysuckle notes, there's a real perfume to the note coming from the Botrytis, and there are vanilla notes as well from the oak, and those are all beautifully in together. As I say, the sort of honeysuckle perfume, the sweet honeyed notes, and the vanilla, they're very, very well combined, giving a very attractive nose indeed. So let's taste. The wine is lusciously sweet and it's syrupy, but don't be mistaken as thinking that that means that it's a cloying wine. In fact, there's some really good acidity, and that's what one of the things that botrytis does to the fruit. As it concentrates the fruit, it allows the water to seep out of through the grape skins, concentrating both the sugars and also the acidity, enabling the winemaker to make a balanced sweet wine that's not too sugary sweet on the finish. The finish here is delicious, and that's where a lot of the lovely complex flavours are coming through. You've got notes of sort of caramel and burnt sugar. You've also got lovely, more high-toned notes of candied peel, and that's quite a distinct note there, coming through a sort of candied orange peel. There are some higher notes as well, sort of mandarin orange pith, that sort of note coming through there as well. There's an underlying honey. There are the touches of cedar and vanilla coming through from the oak, but they're incredibly well integrated into the fruit, so they don't stand out starkly. The notes I've read about this sort of suggest that actually this should probably have been drunk 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't think that this has any difficulty in standing up for itself as a wine. It's aged in a half bottle, it's aged really well. It's under a screw cap, so that should protect it really well from oxidation. There aren't particularly oxidative notes to the flavours. It's not becoming nutty. It's not got it getting to a stage where it's sort of seeming to dry out a little. There's still this lovely, luscious sweetness. And yes, there is that sort of rich, juicy notes to the fruit. But as I say, that's all pulled into balance by this beautiful, fresh acidity that follows on to the finish. The wine is 10% alcohol, so quite low. The sweetness, as I say, is luscious. I've seen notes suggesting that this is 100 grams per litre sugar. From my tasting, I think this is much, much higher, and it is normal for Noble One to be somewhere in the range of 150 to 200 grams per litre sugar. So I'd expect that that's actually the case with this, so I need to do a bit more research about quite how sweet the wine is. But it's a fully sweet wine that would obviously pair with the sort of things that you would normally serve with sauternes. So I mean, foie gras, a classic pairing, blue cheeses, or just lovely fresh fruit. A plum tart is the sort of thing that works very nicely. A sort of fresh fruit and lovely rich pastry that they complement each other really well. So yeah, that is Deen de Bortoli's 2006 Noble One Botrytis Semillon, a wine that is fully mature now, but seems to be set to age for another at least 5 or 6 years. I probably think you can keep this for another 10, to be honest. It's doing really well, and it's a real delight to taste. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you found the video interesting. If so, please do like and share it with your friends. Do leave your comments. We'd love to hear what you think about the wine, similar wines, the video. But most importantly, I hope you'll be able to join us again. Do, if you can, sign up and follow us on YouTube, but please do make some time to watch some of our other videos in the near future, won't you? Bye now.